Hi, my name is Jessica Sack, and I am a candidate for the Masters of Public Policy program. Welcome to my portfolio presentation. In 2009, I completed my bachelor's degree in marine science at Boston University. My undergraduate research experience included fieldwork at the Mesoamerican Barrier Reef in Belize. My professor at the time was advising the country of Belize on coral reef management based on his research findings. Being a part of this research piqued my interest in public policy because I was hopeful that combining a public policy degree with my research background would open up opportunities where I could use research in the policy-making process. In 2010, I began working at the University of Massachusetts Cranberry Station as an environmental physiology technician. One of the primary goals of the Cranberry Station is to develop best management practices for cranberry growers based on research findings. In 2011, I began to pursue a certificate in environmental policy, and then in 2013, I matriculated into the MPP program. The purpose of this presentation is to present what the program has taught me and how the program has and hopefully will impact my life. I thought about the best way to describe what I have learned from the program, and I decided that my internship experience illustrates this concept best. I was given the opportunity to work for the Massachusetts Association of Conservation Districts, also known as the MACD, and the USDA NRCS on proposed nutrient management regulations. If passed, the proposed regulations would require all agricultural lands, 10 acres or more, to create a mandatory nutrient management plan for the land. The goals of my internship were to determine if the USDA NRCS approved nutrient management plan met the requirements of the proposed regulations under 330 CMR 31, to determine the number of plans that exist in the state for the type of operation subject to the proposed regulations, and to identify the need among the regulated community to have these plans developed. To meet these goals, I had to become a volunteer at the West Wareham USDA NRCS office. My first assignment was to attend an open hearing for the proposed regulations where citizens who would be affected by the law offered comments. This was really interesting because I got to witness firsthand the policy-making process that I've been studying since 2011. In order to determine if the USDA NRCS approved nutrient management plan met the requirements of the proposed regulations under 330 CMR 31, I had to do extensive research both online and via personal interviews with USDA NRCS employees. Without my experience in the MPP program, particularly the classes that emphasize law, I would have had difficulty understanding and analyzing the proposed regulations and legal jargon. While I'm definitely not an expert in law, I found that the exposure to the laws that classes like ocean policy and law, environmental policy, environmental law, and administrative law proved to be beneficial. Furthermore, I found my internship experience to be very relevant to the concepts learned in administrative law. Working in a federal agency's office while being paid by a state agency definitely illustrated the complicated interagency relationships that are necessary to implement policy. Unfortunately, most of the time, the bureaucracy associated with these relationships tested my patience more often than not. In order to determine the number of plans that exist in the state for the type of operation subject to the proposed regulations, I needed to access USDA and NRCS data. This was a bureaucratic nightmare. Believe it or not, the skills I learned in public management were very relevant during the process. I was able to observe my supervisor's management style and strategically negotiate with her to access the data I needed to complete my projects. When I finally had access to the data, I had to compile and analyze it. Looking back at this experience, my newly acquired skills from applied policy research and seminar, which I am currently taking, would have been very helpful at the time. Finally, in order to identify the need among the regulated community to have these plans developed, I had to research USDA census data for Massachusetts. But I couldn't just leave the project like that. My experience with microeconomics, state and local finance, policy analysis, and public institutions in the policy process had me thinking about things like who was going to fund the implementation of these regulations, and how would the state and the farmers be affected? These are topics that were not covered in the proposed regulations. These are questions that I'm not sure I would have thought to ask before my MPP experience. As I've been describing, the MPP program has been very beneficial. The MPP program has extensively highlighted the intricacies of the policymaking process, who is involved, how policies are formed, how they're implemented and enforced from different policy arenas. I have also learned how to critically analyze policies and formulate important questions like, what is the cost of the program? Who will be affected? How will they be affected? And what are the other options? And how to compare these options through approaches like cost-benefit analysis. These newly formed skills would not be relevant if I had not learned central issues surrounding public policy in the U.S., which are mentioned in just about every class. Furthermore, every single class required extensive writing via discussion with peers and policy papers, and therefore further developed my writing skills and style. Coming from an experimental research background, I had never conducted research from secondary data, and as a research technician, I was never required to perform statistical analysis. These are both very important skills that I plan to use in the future. If you are interested in seeing in more detail my work and takeaway lessons from each class, please visit the courses taken and materials delivered section of my Wikispaces portfolio page. So what's next? Well, first and foremost, I plan to go on a backpacking trip in Virginia with my husband. After that, I'm not exactly sure. My goal has been to somehow marry my interests in environmental research and policy. I plan on looking for a new job in the Philadelphia area as an environmental consultant, policy analyst, or maybe continue as a research technician. I've also considered looking into PhD programs, but I plan on taking some time off from academia before doing so. If you'd like to reach me after the program, my email is jessicamsack@gmail.com. Please note the one S in Jessica. Thank you to all of my professors. I really have enjoyed my MPP experience. If all goes well, I hope to see you at graduation.